بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير حدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد والحمد لله by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that alhamdulillah we've been able to come together on this evening, which is the first of 2 evenings of muhadarat and lectures going through this matter of Lāmiyyah by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. And no doubt it's something of benefit that brings joy to the hearts to see your brothers from Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And we ask Allah Ta'ala that He makes this gathering one of benefit for us in this dunya and akhirah. Alhamdulillah, our brother Abu Abdullah Zubair, Jazawullah Khair, he began with the first abiyat, the first lines of poetry from this particular text. And I've been asked by the Ikhwa, Jazawullah Khair, to continue and be tasked with the continuation of the text and the next 2 abiyats, so the next baitan. And the first line is as follows: قال المصنف رحمه الله وأقول في القرآن ما جاءت به آياته فهو الكريم المنزل. And I say in regards to the Qur'an, regarding the Qur'an, that which has come, then within its verses is a noble revelation. And they're following on from that bait, following on from that particular line, then you have وَأَقُولُ قَالَ اللَّهُ جَلَّ جَلَالُهُ وَالْمُصْطَفَى الْحَادِي وَلَا أَتَأَوَّلُ. And I say, Allah Ta'ala, the Mighty and Majestic, has said, the Chosen One, referring to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I said, I do not explain away their speech. This is from the direct translation of our Shaykh and teacher, Abu Ayyad Amjad Rafiq, hafidhullah. And so thus, no doubt, from what's apparent and was clear and abundantly clear, is a discussion of this muhadara is around the Qur'an itself. The discussion of this muhadara is centered around the Qur'an and the correct creed when it comes to the Qur'an, and that first and foremost the Qur'an is munazzal min indillah. It's been revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thus, no doubt as well, it's been revealed by Allah, and it's a means of guidance, and been revealed to the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so, Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi rahimahullah, he mentions, في هذين البيتين أخبر بأنه يعتقد بأن القرآن كلام الله منزل غير مخلوق. So what we understand from these first two lines, or these two lines rather, is that Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah has made abundantly clear that his i'tiqad, his creed in relation to the Qur'an, is that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah, is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's been revealed. And it's غير مخلوق, and it's not created. فنحن نقول كما قال الله جل وجلال. And so we say, as Allah Ta'ala states, وإن أحد من المشركين استجارك فأجره حتى يسمع كلام الله. And so Allah Ta'ala states in Surah At-Tawbah, and if one of the mushrikeen comes to you seeking protection, then provide for them a protection so that they may hear from the speech of Allah. So no doubt this affair of referring to the Qur'an as the kalam of Allah is not from our speech, it's not from ourselves, rather it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, referring to that which is from the Qur'an as the kalam of Allah. So he described it, tabarak wa ta'ala, as the kalam of Allah. And so, this, no doubt, this speech and this ayah is a rejection of the madhhab of the Mu'tazila. A rejection of the way of the Mu'tazila who claim and state in the Qur'an al-Makhluq, that indeed the Qur'an is created. Now, and likewise, this ayah is a rejection of those that claim and those that refer to as the Lafdiyah. Those that refer to as the Lafdiyah that claim that indeed my speech, that our speech of the Qur'an is created. And so, it is affirmed by Ahlus wal Jama'ah that whoever states that the Qur'an is created, فَهُوَ كَافِرٌ. Whoever states that the Qur'an is created, then he is disbelieved. And whoever states that my speech by way of the Qur'an is created, then he is a mubtadi', jahmi. He is a person of innovation and upon the way of Jahmiyyah. And so, these are the first 2 points in relation to the one that says this, the speech about the Qur'an being created, absolutely, this is the kalam al-kufr. And the one that says that my love, my speech within the Qur'an, and that which is from the Qur'an is created. So this is bid'ah. And so, regarding the first affair, then Imām al-Sa'di rahimahullah, he mentions Al-Qur'an kalam Allah. The Qur'an is the speech of Allah. حقيقة حروفه ومعانيه. And the Qur'an is the speech of Allah in its reality by way of the letters that are found in it, as well as its meanings. ليس كلامه الحروف دون المعاني. And the speech is not the speech of Allah Ta'ala with letters without meanings. وَلَا مَعَانِي دُونَ حُرُوفٍ, nor is it meanings without the letters. تكلم الله به قولا وأنزله على نبيه وحيا. And so Allah Ta'ala He spoke by way of that which is the Qur'an and revealed it or sent it to His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a revelation. وَآمَنَ بِهِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ حَقًّا. And as for the believers, then they have true faith in that regard. True faith in relation to the Qur'an. Now, and so no doubt the speech from Imam Sa'di rahimahullah is a clear indication that everything that is regarded as being from the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah. We're discussing the meanings, we're discussing the actual huruf, the letters. All of it is regarded as being from the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he goes on to mention that as for the aqlam and the awraq, this is makhluqa. As for the pens or the papers, this is created. However, that which they are writing, that which they write down, the ayat, is غير مخلوق. And it is not created. والألسن والأصوات مخلوقة. And as for the tongues, as for the voices, then these are created. As for that which is recited, then that which is recited is not created. They're the makhluk. And so, a proof of that, or the mention of that, the Shaykh mentioned some ayat. From them is the ayah in Surah Al-Ankabut, بل هو آيات بينات في صدور الذين أوتوا العلم ومن يجحد بآياتنا إلا الظالمون. And so within them are clear verses that are memorized within the hearts of those that possess knowledge. And whoever rejects and turns away from ayat, they're not a people except for those that are wrongdoers. And thus this is the speech of As-Sa'di rahimahullah in relation to the affair of the Qur'an. That the Qur'an is غير مخلوق. And he goes on to mention, rahimahullah, whoever states the Qur'an, or shay min al-Qur'an, or something from, or some part or portion of the Qur'an is makhluq, is created, for a kafirun, kufrun akbar. That individual that makes such a statement is a kafir and is fallen into major kufr. يخرجه من الإسلام بكلية. It causes him to leave Islam in totality. لأن القرآن كلام الله، نعم، لأن القرآن كلام الله تعالى. Because the Qur'an is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. منه بدأ وإليه يعود وكلامه صفته ومن قال شيء من الصفات لا مخلوق فهو كافر مرتد. And so we understand, as mentioned by Imam Sa'di here, that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and his kalam is his sifa. It's from the attributes of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. The kalam is from the attributes of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And so whoever says something from the sifat of Allah, something from the attributes of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, is makhluk, is created, then such an individual is a kafir murtad. Such an individual has disbelieved and apostated by way of that speech, by way of that i'tiqad. Now, so this is the speech of Imam Sa'di in relation to this individual. And so, as mentioned in relation to this affair of the Qur'an, is the kalam of Allah ghayr makhluq, and whoever says that the kalam of Allah is makhluq, for kafir. This was the first we mentioned. And whoever says that my statement of the Qur'an, or by me stating the Qur'an, my recitation of the Qur'an is makhluq, then he is a mubtadi' jahmi. So this is the first thing we mentioned. That the individual, by way of his statement, saying that the Qur'an is created, then he is a kafir. As for the second, then is mentioned here again by Imam Sa'di. He says that هذه ibara, my Qur'an and my statement of Qur'an or recitation of Qur'an is created. He says هذه ibara لا يجوز, that such a statement is not permissible. Say that my recitation of Qur'an is created. نعم إطلاقها نفيا ولا إثباتا لأن اللفظ معنى مشترك بين تلفظ الذي هو الفعل العبد وبين الملفوظ به الذي هو القرآن. فإذا أطلق القول بخلقه شمل المعنى الثاني. And so, when a person just says absolutely that my recitation of the Qur'an is created, and he just says this makes this absolute statement, Imam Sa'di mentions that this is not permissible. Why? Because in saying this is comprehensive of two things. Comprehensive of the fi'l of the abd, the action of the abd. The action of the servant himself and his recitation. As well as it encompasses the malfuz, that which is being mentioned, that which is being recited. In this case, it's the Qur'an. And so, because when a person says in the absolute sense, the recitation of the Qur'an is created, when it says this in the absolute sense, then it comprises of both. It comprises of his action as well as that which he is reciting, which is Qur'an. Does it make sense? Or Eid? Shall I go again? No. So then when a person says, I absolutely made itlaq, he says absolutely, that my recitation of the Qur'an is created. It says this statement. Imam Sa'di mentions here, and this is the statement of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and this statement is la yajuz, not permissible. Why? Because in saying that, he's not only speaking about the action, the recitation, the fi'l of the abd, but he's also referring to that which is being recited as well, which is the Qur'an. And of course, we've established that we cannot say that the Qur'an is created, because the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah. The kalam is from the sifat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So if we affirm that the sifat of Allah Ta'ala, no doubt, are from the affair of Tawheed. And so if we now make this claim that something from the sifat of Allah is created, no doubt this is something which is bid'ah al-kufr. And so here the distinction is made between the two. Why? Because the first individual says directly that my speech, the person says directly that the Qur'an is created. He says directly. without any wordplay, without any distinction made. So this person, by way of that, is kafir. You disbelieve by way of that. The second individual, essentially, is saying the same thing. However, he's mentioning it in a roundabout way. And he's mentioning it inclusive of other affairs, inclusive of his action as well in terms of his recitation. And so this is why Imam Sa'di mentions that this is a speech which is not permissible, it's bid'ah, a speech of bid'ah and from the Jahmiyyah. And so, now, Imam Sa'di mentions this is from the affairs of innovations. لهذا قال السلف الصالح رحمهم الله تعالى من قال لفظي بالقرآن مخلوق فهو جهمي ومن قال غير مخلوق فهو مبتدع. And so, Sa'di mentions that whoever says that my recitation of the Qur'an is created, then he's a Jahmi. He's amongst the Jahmiyyah. And whoever says that it's not created, then he is a Mubtadi'. He's fallen into bid'ah. Why? Because you cannot make itlaq upon one or the other. Because it's comprehensive of the two affairs. Comprehensive of the action, which is makhluk. But comprehensive likewise as well of the Qur'an, which is غير makhluk. So you cannot say absolutely one or the other. And so, thereafter, Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi rahimahullah mentioned in relation to that statement, the statement found from Dr. Salaf, that the individual is described as a Jahmi because if he says that my recitation absolutely is makhluk, then it is comprehensive of that which is being recited, which is the Qur'an itself. And it is regarded as being within that meaning. And so this is the speech of Imam al-Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi rahimahullah. And so the reality is, as we mentioned, that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. وَالْكَلَامُ اللَّهِ صِفَةٌ بِصِفَاتِهِ. And that the kalam of Allah is a sifa بِصِفَاتِهِ. From the attributes of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is kalam. وأهل السنة والجماعة يعتقدون أن belief أهل السنة والجماعة is أن الله يتكلم بكلام قديم النوع حادث الآحاد يتكلم متى شاء بما شاء كيف شاء. And the belief of our Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah in relation to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala is that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala speaks however He wills, whenever He wills, and with whatsoever He wills, Tabarak wa Ta'ala. وأن عدم الكلام نقص في المخلوق فكيف لا يكون نقصا في الخالق. And so, as mentioned in relation to not being able to speak, not having that ability to speak and mention speech, then this is a naqs. This is a deficiency with the makhluk. And we're not able, as the makhluk ourselves, we're not able to speak at all times we wish to speak. There may be times we're not able to speak. And so, no doubt, if this is something which is affirmed and we say it's a deficiency, then no doubt this would be, if someone said this about Allah, then there'll be ascribing a deficiency to Allah Ta'ala also. ومن ذلك زعمهم أن من وصف الله بأنه متكلم وأنه يتكلم متى شاء يلزم منه مشابه للمخلوقين وكذبوا في ذلك. And so they define those that claim that whoever makes this comparison, whoever mentions rather, so you have the individuals that claim that whoever says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks and speaks whenever He wills, then this necessitates a comparison with the creation. And this is batil. For no doubt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks whenever He wills, however He wills, and with whatever He wills. This is not something that the creation are able to do. So this is some of the speech in relation to the affair of the Qur'an, that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah, غير مخلوق. And so, to go further, then we have as well in relation to the Qur'an itself, the discussion about the meaning of the Qur'an. And the meaning of the Qur'an in terms of the lugha and the shar. The lugha, the language and the sharia. And Sheikh Ubaid, rahimahullah, he mentioned the Qur'an يطلق تارة على كتاب معروف منزل على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وتارة يطلق على القراءة يعني تلاوة. And so sometimes the Qur'an is referring to the book which is well known, like that which was revealed to the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and referring to the Qur'an. And sometimes it could be referring to that which has been recited, and the recitation. And from the first example, in relation to the Qur'an, in the هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي الأقوم. Indeed, this Qur'an guides and directs to that which is more upright, which is found in Surah Isra. So this is the first meaning. I refer to the Qur'an itself, that which is recited. I refer to the Qur'an, that which was revealed to the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And in the second meaning, I am referring to that which is recited. For example, the hadith, which is found in Sahih Bukhari, in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions خُفِفَ عَلَى دَاوُودَ القرآن فكان يأمر بدوابه فتسرج فيقرأ القرآن قبل أن تسرج الدواب. And so, here in this narration it mentions that it was made easy for Dawood to recite from the book, from the text. In this case, referring to the Zabur. But in this narration, it's referring to, or it's been referred to as Qur'an. Why? Because this was his recitation in that regard. And that was made easy for him. And so the Qur'an in this hadith is a qira'ah. وَلَا يُرَادُ الْقُرْآنِ مُنَزَّلَ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم. And so the word Qur'an of this hadith is referring to the Zabur and his qira'ah of the Zabur in that narration. And the intent is not the Qur'an which was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this hadith is mentioned by Bukhari in his tafsir of Surah An-Nisa and his tafsir of the ayah وَآتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ زَبُورًا. So we know it's referring to the Zabur. As for the Qur'an and the Sharia, So the Qur'an and Sharia is the kitab munazzal ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam min Allah biwasita Jibreel alayhi salam. And so the Qur'an is that which has been revealed to the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The book that has been revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from Allah by way of Jibreel alayhi salam. منقول بالتواتر متعبد بتلاوته وهذه إحدى عبارات في معنى شرعي. So, Sheikhna rahimahullah, he mentioned that the Qur'an is the book which has been revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The first thing I mentioned. Na'am, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by way of the wasita of Jibreel, by way of Jibreel. It's manqul, has been transmitted in a manner of tawatur, yani mutawatir. So the riwayat and the way that the Qur'an has been passed on from one to another has been ala wajh tawatur. Meaning that the number of those that have passed on the narrations and that which is found within the Qur'an, and these ayat, from one to another, is of such a large number, plethora of individuals, that is said that it's impossible that they could have come together and conspired to lie about it. This is generally what is understood from tawatur. So generally you hear, when we refer to the science of hadith, that is hadith is mutawatir. Meaning that the hadith on every single level of the chain, there are so many individuals that it's impossible that we can say that they've come together to conspire. However, the whole of the Qur'an, in relation to the ayat of the Qur'an, are mutawatir. All of the ayat are mutawatir. And the final thing mentioned in relation to it as well is that it is recited as an action of ta'abbud. It is recited as an action of ibadah. That when one recites the Qur'an, it's an action of ibadah. And then Shaykh Ubayd rahimahullah goes on to mention, وكان أئمة من الصحابة وأئمة التابعين في أول الأمر يكتفون بهذا القرآن كلام الله. So the A'immah from amongst the companions and the A'immah from amongst the Tabi'een, they would suffice with the first ibarah, that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. Na'am, they would suffice with the first ibarah that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. وَلَا يَحْتَاجُونَ إِلَى غَيْرِهِ. They do not need other than that. وذلك لأن الإسلام غض طري خالطة بشاشات القلوب فاستغلوا بما عرفوه من كتاب ربهم وسنة نبيهم صلى الله عليه وسلم. نعم. And so this is due to the fact that no doubt when it came to the affair of Islam, that this was something that had entered upon the hearts of the individuals and from these generations. This was something which was known, and the reality of the Sahih I'tiqad was upon the hearts of these individuals. And so they were sufficed of that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah. And so they would define it by way of the kitab, of that which is mentioned in the kitab of Rabbihim wa Sunnah Nabiyyihim, that which is mentioned in the book of their Lord and the Sunnah of their Prophet, in the most simplest of terms. حتى جاءت الجهمية وورثتهم, until the time when the Jahmiyyah reared its head, and those that followed on from them. Until the time when the Jahmiyyah reared its head, and those that followed on from them, and those that inherited from them, and what evil inheritance that is from the Mu'tazila. And they came in a Khalifa to Abbas. And this was the affair when they appeared. Then the speech began by way of stating that the Qur'an is makhlūq. The statement that the Qur'an is created. فَاقْتَرَعَ بِهَا وَآمَنَ بِهَا. And so they sought to convince others of that and believe in that themselves. واحتوى هذه المقالة وحمل الناس عليها لا سيما العلماء بالقوة فقتل بعض وحبس بعض حتى مات. And they were forceful with that creed. Forceful to the extent that they would force and seek to force it upon the ulama of the people of truth. And it's affair of the Qur'an being created. They sought to force it upon them by way of saying that the Qur'an is created and that if an individual refused to accept that from amongst the ulama, then they would be killed. And if not killed, then imprisoned until they died. And so this here, from the kalam of the Shaykh, rahimahullah, he seeks not only to explain the correct position in relation to the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah, but also to outline the history of where the innovative practices and the innovative speech and the innovative i'tiqad, the innovative creed in relation to the Qur'an came from. As he mentioned, in the first two generations, now in the first generation amongst the companions, then they sufficed with the Qur'an's kalam Allah. كذا تابعون. Likewise with the tabi'een. However, when the Jahmiyyah came about, and then those that followed them, and they sought to force this i'tiqad by way of killing the people of knowledge. Because no doubt, what we have to understand, barakallahu fikum, is that evil practices cannot thrive when ilm is thriving. Evil practices cannot be present and thrive when ilm is thriving, when there's knowledge thriving. However, if what is prevalent is jahl, if what you find is prevalent is jahl, ignorance amongst the people, then no doubt what comes after that is people falling into mukhalafat, anything that is mukhalif al-haqq. And you cannot remove ilm, as we know. As Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned, that ilm is not removed by way of stripping it from the hearts of the people. However, it's removed by way of the qabd al-ulama, by way of the death of the scholars. So they sought to expedite that process. They sought to speed up that process. Speed up the process of the death of the ulama in order to make the jahl prevalent. So they went about killing some of the scholars and went about imprisoning others. And so you understand, barakallahu fikum, that it's not an affair where they merely would spread their batil in relation to the Qur'an. Spread the batil and say that the Qur'an is makhlūq and leave it at that. No doubt from their kaid, from their plot, was that they had to make this affair of jahl prevalent amongst the people so it may spread. And so thus, after that, bid-darura, فَضَرَّ Salaf, that the Salaf, after that, they had by necessity to mention Al-Qur'an, Kalamullah, منزل منه غير مخلوق. And so, after that, they had to state that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. It's غير مخلوق, it's not created. It has been revealed by Him, Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Now, so the Qur'an is the speech of Allah, it's been revealed by Him, Tabarak wa Ta'ala, it's not created. And so the statement, Al-Qur'an, Kalamullah, as we mentioned, is that it's the speech of Allah in every sense. It's from Allah in every sense. Whether we're referring to the ayat and the letters, or we're referring to the meanings. It's all from the kalam of Allah. And so thus, now, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, he mentions in relation to the Qur'an, as-sawt, sawt al-qari, wa kalam, kalam al-bari. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he mentions that the voice is the voice of the qari, the voice of the reciter when it's reading the Qur'an. As for the speech, it's the kalam al-bari, al-kalam of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. And so the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah. And we say that in the absolute sense. And we do not say, as you have some of the speech as well, where people say Al-Qur'an, ibaratan an kalamillah. So they say that it's an expression of the speech of Allah. So they'll say that the Qur'an is an expression of the speech of Allah. And this is the way of the Ash'ariyah. Or Al-Qur'an hikayatan an kalamillah. Or that the Qur'an is a narration or something which is transmitted from the speech of Allah. So you find that these individuals from Ahlul Batil, you find that some individuals from Ahlul Batil, they will claim this affair of the Kalam of Allah in relation to the Qur'an. However, by way of their ibarat, by way of the speech that they use, they seek to dodge in reality. They seek to dodge the truth in relation to the kalam of Allah, that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah. So they'll say that it's an expression from the kalam of Allah, or transmission from the kalam of Allah. However, Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah affirm, bila shak wala rayb, that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. And so, thereafter, you have the question. Thereafter, you have a question that is asked, and it's something that you generally find is asked to this day. When they say, هل يوجد اليوم من يقوم بخلق القرآن? They say, is it possible, or is it even a case where there are people living today that states that the Qur'an is created? First and foremost, barakallahu feekum, this is something which is a shubha, or a question that is usually asked shubhatan, as a means of a doubt, in order to throw doubt upon all of the athar of the Salaf when it comes to ma'amalat Ahlul Bid'ah. When it comes to how we deal and treat Ahlul Bid'ah, the people of innovation. Because they will say that these athar of Thawri, the athar of Ibn Uyayna, the athar of Ibn Mubarak, the athar of all of the Salaf, this was about these individuals that are upon these innovations. And there's no Jahmiyyah now. There's no one that says these statements now. So, we cannot have the same mu'amala of the people now. Because they didn't follow the same innovations of the people then. And so, due to that, you may find that the question that's being asked is, are the same innovations then still prevalent now? Hoping for the answer to the negative. Hoping to hear the answer that no, this innovation is not prevalent now. And so if the innovation there is not prevalent now, then we cannot have the same mu'amala with these individuals. So when we see someone that's opposes the haqq, we cannot now have the same mu'amala with them by way of hajar, for example, by way of boycotting them, by way of leaving them off, by way of, if needed, harshness, by way of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil of these individuals. Because they'll say the same, this is not the same innovation that they have now. And so we say, Barakallahu Feekum, I read from the speech of Shaykh Ubaid, Shaykhna, Rahimahullah. He mentions, when asked, is this innovation of the Khalq of the Qur'an prevalent today, and still present today? He says, Na'am. Yes. And that we see that there are different articles and different parts of speech from individuals that may state the same statements in one way or another. And that you may have those that are regarded as being the free thinkers or Islamic thinkers that they call them, refer to them. And they will describe the Qur'an, they will say that the Qur'an is a Qawlun Azim. Qawlun Azim. It's a great creation. Like what does it see now? Oh, Qaaidah Azim. Oh, that is a great part or great piece of creation. So if this is said, فَمَنْ كَوَّنَهُ, so if they say this is a great piece of creation, then the question must be, Man kawwanahu, who created it? If we say that these things, or we say now that the Qur'an is a great piece of creation, فَمَنْ kawwanahu, who created it? Now, ومنهم من يصف بأنه صنعة الله عظيم. And so then likewise you may hear that people state that this is, or that this has been a great fashioning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, all of these ibarat, all of these statements, all allude to the affair that they are saying that this Qur'an is created. All of these statements allude to that. And from these statements is the following. فالقرآن ظاهرة كونية كالأرض والسماوات. تنزلت من الملأ الأعلى. So then his statement here, it states that the Qur'an is, from what is apparent, has been brought about and fashioned just as the heavens and the earth have been fashioned. And that has been revealed and descended upon the earth. This is the statement of Sayyid Qutb in his tafsir fi Dilal al-Qur'an. This statement, Barakallahu Feekum, no doubt, is a statement of jahl, is a statement of ignorance. However, how many individuals do you find to this day where they will fight tooth and nail to defend Sayyid Qutb? Fight tooth and nail to bring aqwal, to bring speech, saying that this man Sayyid Qutb was a righteous man. This man Sayyid Qutb was a scholar from us, the scholars of Islam. This man Sayyid Qutb was from the shuhada. He's a martyr, to that extent even. But now we refer to this affair of Khalq al-Qur'an. And we discuss the ahkam in relation to Khalq al-Qur'an. The ones that state that the Qur'an is created. And then now, as mentioned, as Sheikh Ubaid mentions, that we have these ibarat. You have these statements that are still prevalent till today. You have these statements that are still prevalent till today within the books of such individuals. And that book, the same book, this tafsir of Sayyid Qutb, is a book that you may find all over the place. It's a book that you find within the masajid of Ahlul Bid'ah. It's a book that you find within the maktabat, within the bookstores of Ahlul Bid'ah, within the libraries of Ahlul Bid'ah. It's a book that you find as praised by the Hizbiyyin and Ahlul Bid'ah. The same book. So then the question shouldn't be, is this i'tiqad, is this bid'ah, is this innovation here still prevalent today? It's still prevalent. The question should be, where is it being spread? And what is the correct creed in relation to it? We should discuss today already. And it should not be a discussion around whether it still exists, in order to open a new discussion about mu'amalat Ahlul Bid'ah. Because the reality is, that in particular innovation still exists. And the reality is that the mu'amala is the same mu'amala. They dealt with it the same way. Because it's an evil i'tiqad, it's an evil creed. Now, the Shaykh goes on to mention, ولا يزال طوائف من الروافد وغيرهم يعتقدون هذا معتقد أن القرآن مخلوق. And there seems to be groups and parties from amongst the Rafidah, from amongst the Shia, the Rafidah, that hold this particular creed that the Qur'an is created. And this is something which Sheikh Allāma Ali Nasir al-Faqihi mentions as well in relation to that. That he refuted this claim from these individuals that the Qur'an is something which is created. And so thus, we understand, no doubt, first and foremost, the correct creed in relation to the Qur'an. We understand the correct creed in relation to the Qur'an, that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah, غير مخلوق. That the Qur'an is the book of Allah and the speech of Allah, and it's not created. And it's a must, or the need came for us to state that it's not created. Why? Because of the widespread innovations and speech that the Qur'an itself is created. Thereafter, we understand that those that oppose, that seek to oppose this speech, that the Qur'an is the kalam of Allah, they are of two types, or there are two essential ways that they do so. They do so directly by way of saying the Qur'an is makhlūq. They say that the Qur'an is created. It's kufr akbar. Because now you're saying that the kalam, Allah's kalam, is a sifa min sifati, is something which is created. That something from Allah's sifat is created. And just as a person would never say that Allah Ta'ala's basar is created, and that Allah's sight is created. Likewise, you cannot say that Allah's kalam is created. And the mukhalif, the one that opposes that also, they oppose it by way of stating that by its recitation of the Qur'an is created. They say in the absolute sense. Again, which is inclusive of that which is being recited, which is the Qur'an. And so thus, with that, barakallahu feekum, we conclude. Allah yafadhakum ikhwan. Jazakumullah khairan. As mentioned at the beginning, it brings joy to the heart to see my Salafi brothers in these gatherings. And we hope, no doubt, that these gatherings are a means of benefiting one another. And what I'll mention just as a final point, is that these dawrat and these gatherings such as these, whilst beneficial, alhamdulillah, they only remain beneficial if you as individuals continue to revise that which you learn. And that we can take on what we've learned today and tomorrow and any other time in these gatherings of ilm and revise this affair. Because we never know that we may take one small piece of knowledge from a gathering of ilm, and that may be a means of our najah, a means of our salvation. And so the thaman, when it comes to the value of that which we are sitting down learning today, and gatherings such as these gatherings, gatherings mubarakah, the value of that, we will not know in reality. However, we are well aware, inshallah, of the benefit of seeking knowledge. No doubt that knowledge will call to action. And those actions will call to increasing in iman and drawing nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's just as a reminder for myself, first and foremost, as your brother, barakallahu feekum, and as a reminder for yourselves here, just to renew your intentions and to remind yourself of why we're in these gatherings such as these, so that we may benefit ourselves and act upon the righteous actions and turn back to Allah in a way that is pleasing to Him. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. فبارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله.